Hey Shayna, how are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
Awesome. Doing great. Obviously, coming up on Monday, you got a match with Reginald on Raw. Super exciting stuff. With a match like this, do you approach it like any other match, or are you just extra excited to be getting your hands on Reginald after all this time?
Well, a little of both. You have to approach it like every other match. As soon as it changes in your mind, it starts affecting how you work in the ring. So, in order to do what I do, kind of have to keep it like every other match. However, I'd be lying if I didn't say I wasn't a little bit excited to get my hands on Reginald and ground the flippy circus guy.
So with a match like this, is this just total destruction? Is it you're going to take your time and enjoy it? I mean, obviously no spoilers here, but what can people expect from this match?
Well, if you, my game plan is to clip the wings of the flying bird and then figure out what this bird can do on the ground. That's got to be the plan. He's obviously athletic. We've seen him backflipping his way out of a lot of stuff and all that kind of stuff. He, as much as I want to roll my eyes at it, he was in the circus since he was like 11 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like he's not used to things being hard on his body and stuff like that. He's obviously in shape. He's obviously athletic. But I don't know if you're looking for some exciting flippy Reggie feature, maybe it isn't the match for you to watch, because I'm going to show you what happens when a technician grounds a flyer.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be different. That's why I think people are looking forward to it. And I think another thing about this match, too, is that we don't ordinarily see intergender wrestling, specifically in WWE, kind of wrestling in general, but definitely WWE. It's not something that we see often. With you personally, what is your view on intergender wrestling? We don't see it a ton. Is it something you're looking forward to doing, might want to do more of in the future? What's your whole view on that?
Well, so it's an interesting topic, and it always is, because I think as a martial artist and a fighter, I understand. I was the only female on my fight team for years, for the majority of my career. So this like sparring, I've even entered submission wrestling tournaments and wrestled in the men's division because the women in the women's division weren't as experienced. So I felt like I was going to get my money's worth to enter this tournament. So this is not new to me, and it's also not new to me or anyone else that trains in that sort of martial art to understand that a woman can compete with a male. That's not a question, and it's surprising to me that in this day and age that's so hard for people to understand. People can understand that a smaller, more skilled amateur wrestler could hold their own against someone in a higher weight class, but turn that smaller, more skilled amateur wrestler into a woman, and suddenly there's a question about it. It's just something weird and, I don't know, innate in us as beings, I guess. But I also am only in support of intergender wrestling when it makes sense and when I know the woman knows what they're doing. I wouldn't suggest to just any... this is not something I don't even know if it's appropriate to name names. I wouldn't tell Lana to just get in there with any male on the roster. But someone like myself, who's a technician, and I'm experienced competing against males, and I know how to balance technique versus strength. That it's a little more fitting for someone like me. So, I'm not like all gung ho. All women should fight on an equal ground with a man. If there's women that train to do that, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I think the argument for me is that people don't necessarily believe all the time that a woman can train to balance out that male versus female aspect, but that is possible, and I'm going to show that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think you make a great point, too. I definitely think it depends on the circumstance. But you're right, too. Do you think a lot of people just are turned off by it? And obviously part of it is personal preference, which is whatever. But do you think a lot of people are turned off by it at this point because it's something that we just haven't seen before and people are just kind of scared of what's different?
Yeah, I think that pro wrestling is an interesting medium because it has a shared relation with things like mixed martial arts and also at the same time with things like Marvel movies, right?
Yep.
It's a little bit of both. And so I think when you look at the side of like a Marvel movie, we're not going to argue. Like all the women superheroes always are fighting the guys in that. But when we look at it in like a mixed martial arts sense, we're never going to see that. That's just not something. And that's not getting into can women be competitive. That's not what I'm saying. But that's just a lose-lose. There's no reason that women will ever compete professionally in a fight sport against men. So I think it's hard for people to kind of meld these two thoughts to realize that professional wrestling is its own entity. Yeah. You can't watch professional wrestling all the time the same way that you're going to watch mixed martial arts. You can't watch professional wrestling the same way that you're going to watch a Marvel movie in the theater. So it's this kind of new entity that people are trying to kind of balance, and they think they have to pick one of the two avenues to watch it. You don't have to. Professional wrestling is its own thing. So, and you already mentioned, like, people come in with perhaps their own taste and their own maybe traumas and personal reasons why they don't like it. But I think in general, if people can be shown, and that's what I want to do, is show people there is a way this all makes sense and you can believe it because it's real. Yeah. I don't know. I kind of veered off track, but I hope that makes sense.
No, you make a lot of good points, and I love having this conversation about stuff like this because it's not something that we see often. So even for people who just don't like it, I think it's worth giving a shot. Obviously it depends on the circumstance, who it is, like you said, especially just this day and age. It's worth giving, a shot to. So I absolutely love talking about that stuff. But you did mention, and I got to ask you, you mentioned Marvel. Are you a Marvel fan? You've never struck me as a Marvel fan before. Or are you just using that as an example?
I am a Marvel fan. I wouldn't say I'm like as diehard as some people, but I'm more of a like Star Wars and sci-fi type of fan. But I do enjoy Marvel. Yes. Okay,
I enjoy Star Wars as well. So I got to ask you: are you looking forward to Black Widow in a couple months? What's your favorite Marvel movie here?
Yeah, I am looking forward to Black Widow. Okay, this is something else. I'm a huge like martial arts movie fan. I like bad cheesy ones. I like really good ones. I just love watching fight scenes in movies. And I love Black Widow's style of martial art. That sounds weird to say because she's a superhero and they use kind of magical powers and whatnot. But the martial art that Black Widow derives from is really cool to watch because it's different. It's not like Wonder Woman that has super strong Superman powers. She's using like fighting skills, so that's always cool to me. So I'm really looking forward to that.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask, kind of going off of that, is there any one Marvel superhero, or really just any superhero in general, I guess, that you see yourself most similar to? Like, would you call yourself the Black Widow of WWE? Would you be the Gamora or someone like that,
Oh, that's a good question.
Captain Marvel, maybe? I don't know. There's a lot of choices. There's a lot of great choices.
I think it'd be more of a... Dang, I don't know. I feel like I think with my style of martial arts and the attitude I bring, I'd be more of a villain than a hero. Okay. But I don't think I'd be a villain. Who am I trying to think of? I think I'd be one of those villains. Like, this isn't my choice, I know, because it's just an example, but Magneto's a bad guy, but when the line got drawn, he would fight on the good side. And I think that's kind of the villain that I would be, where it's like, no, I'm doing my own thing, but when like the line is drawn in the sand, it's like, okay, you know what I mean? So honestly, I'd have to like research a little bit more to like pick just one
Yeah.
that would represent me, especially a woman.
Yeah. No, yeah, male, female, it really doesn't matter, but Magneto is a great choice, though, and hopefully at some point we get to see Magneto in the MCU. But we'll get back to the movie stuff in a little bit, because I do want to ask you more about that, because there's just so much to get into there. But I got to ask you about the team stuff, too. You and Nia Jax have been teaming for a long time. We're seeing you going at it in a singles match this Monday on Raw. What's the status of that? Because you guys obviously failed to recapture the titles last week on Raw. Would you still consider you guys selves a team? Is singles something you want to get back into at this point?
Look, I just want to wrestle wherever the bodies are lined up for me to dismantle. Mm-hmm. That's what I want to do. Do I have a preference? I want to win titles. Obviously, I want Nia to not be so distracted. So that's what I'm doing right now, is taking care of the distraction. And I think once she snapped out of this kind of like weird, I don't know, spell or whatever she's under with this Reginald thing, that will be fine. Mm-hmm. We were unstoppable when there were no distractions. Mm-hmm. So, I'm just nipping it in the head.
Yeah. Is there anyone specifically on the Raw roster right now, or I guess even SmackDown, NXT, whatever, that you specifically have your sights set on? Obviously, Rhea Ripley is one, given your history. She's the Raw Women's Champion. Is it Alexa Bliss, given her kind of recent shenanigans and whatever? Is there anyone that you're specifically setting your sights on?
If someone is in my way, look, if you're not in this to win the title, and sure, there's a side of me that's in this just because I like the puzzle of like breaking a human into ways they're not supposed to. Like, if anyone's in my way of one of those two goals, then they're the ones that's going to get taken care of. Mm-hmm. I have Reggie. He's in the way right now. That's going to be taken care of. If Alexa keeps, I take care of Reggie, and Alexa keeps poking her nose in my stuff, well, I could take care of her too. Mm-hmm. Rhea, she's hopefully she's still around, because I have unfinished business with her. If Becky ever wants to show her face around again, I have unfinished business with her. Mm-hmm. There's even, I don't like to limit myself to just one side. Bianca, I've taken care of her before. Mm-hmm. That would be a shot I wouldn't mind. There's a ton of people, and I think for the fans, I guess, there's a ton of people that could be an interesting matchup style-wise for me that I haven't dealt with before. Reginald being one of them, so mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of exciting things to look forward to.
Yeah, 100%. Now, talk to me a little bit about WrestleMania, because you were at WrestleMania this year, and obviously you were there last year too, but this year with fans, because your first Mania in front of nobody at the Performance Center, this year in front of 25,000 people or whatever it was. How crazy of a difference was that for you?
You think like, we all went the whole year, no fans, and you think like, you're like, well, obviously it's better. Can't wait till we get fans back. Oh, good. WrestleMania is going to be cool in front of fans. But I'll be honest with you, walking out on that stage the first night, right as the show started, and hearing the collective, everyone knows there's like a collective crowd noise. Mm-hmm. That's like tens of thousands of voices as one, and hearing that and the fans chanting and being so, I think on top of it being exciting for them, the first show they've seen live. And I've always said that wrestling and fight sport are things that are meant to be experienced live. There's nothing like watching live. Mm-hmm. Even if you're only slightly passively a fan, you should go. But like, it really hit me in that moment, sitting on stage. Pro wrestling is an interesting medium because the crowd is not just an audience of fans, they're a character in the show. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, you can't go to a movie and cheer when the bad guy loses and the good guy looks at you and high fives you, and you know what I mean? I don't know. There's a certain interaction that happens in professional wrestling where it really makes the crowd essentially a character in the show. So there's been, for over a year, there's been one of the main characters missing. So I think it kind of all hit me in that moment. It was so much more, it was kind of emotional. You saw people up there with tears in their eyes and stuff. So it was really, and we all were walking back after that first announcement thing going, man, I needed that.
Yeah.
I really needed that because it gets long and tiring to fall on floors and get hit in the face for no one.
Yeah, no,
So.
definitely. And it's such a difference, I mean, in terms of the atmosphere and everything else. And
Yeah.
and it's crazy too. You go back a year because right before WrestleMania, one of your last live events was Elimination Chamber, winning that pay-per-view main event in front of fans.
Mm-hmm.
And then like literally 3 or 4 days later, a pandemic hits, and it's just all downhill from there in terms of just no fans and everything, which is crazy. So like, I know when we spoke last time, you talked about finding your footing in front of just being on the main roster and how different it is from NXT, blah blah blah. Do you kind of have to find your footing again and when you have fans back in terms of like it's such a different thing to feed off the fans? I mean, obviously you've done it for your entire career, but like learning how to do that whole thing over again.
I think it's an interesting thing because I think I'm in a special spot with my ring style where this can only benefit me.
Mm-hmm.
I think this past year where the only perspective the audience watching has been shown is my close-up of me bending someone's elbow the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard to show a live crowd when they're 30,000 seats back over that way up in the ceiling. But now that everyone that watches wrestling has been shown this close-up of what I do, now I think when we get back, the crowd will know, and I think like it touched a little bit, where when I was having matches before the pandemic hit, and it's a thing I know is going to happen just because I have been doing this that long that the crowd has to be taught what I do.
Mm-hmm.
But now I think they've been taught better than they would have had they been sitting there live.
Yeah.
And so I think now when we get back to a live crowd, I feel like it's a very comfortable spot for me now, where it almost helped me get my footing easier this happening. In hindsight, I mean, obviously you always prefer being in front of a crowd and all that. But I think it's a little bit of a blessing in disguise for me that it happened that way. So I'm stoked to see when we get back to a live crowd, now that the audience in the WWE universe knows what I'm doing, how it all plays out.
Yeah, I mean, if you could do it in front of no fans, you could definitely do it in front of 10,000 people or whatever it is. And, being a former MMA fighter yourself, obviously you know the experience of working with lesser people or a lot of people, so you have that experience behind you. Last couple of questions, and I forgot to ask you last time, but I have this thing with my girlfriend. We don't know what it is about your theme song. In the very beginning, hopefully you can answer this for me. Is it gears? Is it horses? I thought it was horses because of the 4 horsewomen, but obviously I know you're a big car person. Is it gears? What is it in the beginning of your theme song?
It is supposed to be the cart that the horses are pulling.
That's what I thought. Okay, I was right then. Okay, she's been trying to tell me for like a year now. No, it's gears. I'm like, listen, it's not a car. It's definitely horses. That's what I thought it was. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. A car. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. So thank you for clarifying that. Last thing, we were talking earlier about movies and whatever. Obviously, knowing you're a big car fan, are you a Fast and the Furious fan? Are you going to be seeing that when that comes out soon?
I'll probably go see it. I wasn't like the biggest, I wasn't a person that has to go see every single one. Obviously, Rhonda and being friends with Rhonda and I paid attention a little more.
Yeah.
Fast. So like I have a 69 Mustang. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, obviously that Eleanor and when I watch movies, I look for American muscle cars. So I don't know this. I can't explain it. I'll watch a movie and appreciate the car, but the car isn't what is going to draw me into the movie. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Sense.
But yeah, I am a big muscle car fan. I have a 69 Mustang that I'm trying to restore right now. That's a forever process, and people that restore cars know. But I also like off my bucket list someday before I die, I want a 70 Chevelle.
Nice.
Those are the 2 cars I want. So
that's awesome. And kind of with the world opening up again, last question for you. What one thing you're looking forward to doing again? I was talking to Bronson Reed. He said going to the movie theater. I completely agree with that. For you, what is it?
I think being able to visit my nieces more often. Mm-hmm. And obviously now we're going back on the road, so that's going to be another juggling act. But, my sister dealt with cancer, so she was kind of at risk. So just to be safe, it's been over a year since I've been able to go visit and see my nieces and stuff. So that's kind of what I'm excited about. And going to Star Wars Land maybe sometime when I have time.
Have you been there yet?
Yeah, of course I have. And then I bought a season pass because I was like, I'm going to go every weekend when I have a chance. And then like the pandemic happened and I couldn't even go. So.
I got to go to that Katina because it looks amazing. It's still on my bucket list. So that Avengers one, I was supposed to go to Disneyland on the Friday before the pandemic hit, and then my trip was completely canceled, obviously. So that's another thing for me. Oh, man. So I'm looking forward to the world opening up, and I'm looking forward to your match as well with Reginald on Monday's Raw. It's going to be great. Shayna, thanks so much for the time. It's so great talking again. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too.